Hi, everybody. How are you? Let me fix my Zoom meeting configuration here. It's not letting me edit.
Hello.
Hi, how are you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm barely making it, It's been intense,
Oh my
and I'm
god.
here on campus.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Are
I have another class at 7 to 9 tonight for uh
oh, which one? Is it the?
um it's the CIS-25.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they have a lab component that's on campus. So half of my class been dropped. So we
Mhm.
are barely hanging by the thread. So, but I'm glad to see you guys are back, right? Welcome back to fall. Yeah, I forgot to disable the waiting room, but I can't edit it while I'm in Zoom. So I have to fix that later. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Okay. So we are just going to review this week, kind of catch up on programming, get you know, our wheels going again. And then next week is when we're going to dive into advanced programming. So we'll talk about the course content. I want to do a little bit of data analysis in this class because there are a lot of data area, and then we'll talk about some of the areas that we're going to look at in thread and parallel processing. So all right, so it's 5 o'clock. I think people are here, and then there are some that probably going to drop in. So I wanted to go over our syllabus first and our course outline. I will work on finishing the lab and release that to you. So basically, we're going to do some programming, and Danny is here now. So, okay. So welcome to CIS-30E. My name is Casey Nguyen. If you haven't had me before, if this is the first time that you have me, we are mainly going to meet in Zoom. We are only going to meet in Zoom actually for this class. There were a lot of changes at the beginning. So I want to make sure that, if you have any concern or any questions, you can go ahead and let me know. Okay, so I'm admitting people now. Sorry about the waiting room. I forgot to fix that when I set up the appointment for Zoom. Okay, so I'm going to go over the course orientation. If you have any questions, please let me know. This is the class that follows CIS-30A. Unfortunately, we had to cancel the CIS-30C because I inherited another class, and there were some changes with faculty. There were some faculty that were not vaccinated, so they couldn't return to work at this time, or they have other conditions. So anyway, I wanted to talk about the course first. So let me share screen. Please unmute or type in the chat questions if you have any questions, okay? Let me get to my Word document. Okay, so this is our course syllabus. You will be able to find this in our Canvas page, okay? I had posted this for your class. There were a lot of changes. So I had to fix some of the things before it went up. So it was one of the last ones to go up. But this first module gives you all the information about the course. The syllabus, you can find that here. The course information is here. So let's start with the course information. This is a 3-unit course. I was able to get an agreement with UCI on this particular class, which is going to be articulated as INC CSI or SCI 33, Intermediate Programming in Python. We started some agreement with Cal Poly Pomona, UCR, UC Davis, UCSD, and Cal State San Bernardino. That's still in the process of getting updated with our CID and our assist system. So as soon as that's cleared, and I'm hoping very soon, I will be able to update this for you or give you the information for the articulation. Lately, we have to do a lot of course-to-course articulation. So, you know, if you finish the course before it was articulated, then I will be able to, it's still grandfather you in, okay? So in this class, we are going to apply Python programming principle. We are going to look at data sets. We are going to work with data sets. There's some part that we are going to work with scaffolding, looking at how we can clone objects, prototyping pattern, and looking at how we can design algorithms. So this class is gonna, hold on,
Sorry.
that's okay. This class is gonna work with performance application. Yeah, I think if you on 2 system, it's gonna echo a little bit. Let me see. All right, are we okay? Okay, we're good now. So we are going to look at multi-core programming, looking at threads and also looking at parallel processing. So here you will find the general information in Canvas. This class requires 48 hours lecture and 32 hours of lab, and that's going to give you 3 units. For the syllabus, you can download the syllabus or view it in here. I'm just going to use my Word document because that way it's a little better. Let me pull up my Zoom bar up here. So we already looked at the course description. This is a regular Meet online course, which means that we are going to meet on Zoom. Now, in the case where you can't attend for some reason because you know you have schedule conflict or whatnot on certain days, I will have the recording be available on Canvas and also on YouTube channel under the playlist for this course. So if you subscribe to my channel, you will be able to see all the playlists. But if you don't, you will be able to have the YouTube link in Canvas. And we organize everything by module, and each module would represent 1 week. We would have other module that will represent final exam or projects. So in the syllabus itself, you will find the Zoom link, meeting ID, and the passcode for Zoom. So here's the course content. We are gonna, starting next week, we are gonna get into profiling and benchmarking. We are gonna work with various modules. Think about efficiency when you're looking at how we would utilize memory and how we would use data container in this particular class. In CIS-30E, we generally just understand the basic, but in this class, we're going to apply the concept that we learned from CIS-30E, which is Introduction to Python, to improve how we design our application and develop our application. So we are going to revisit today. We are going to touch on dictionaries, a little bit of sets. We are going to get a little bit more in queues and working with how we would design structure for our data with heaps. And so further, we are going to look into operations with access arrays, looking back into mathematical operations, how to use broadcasting and norm. Some of this sound very new to you, I know, but we will learn a lot of these concepts as we move along. We will work with indexing series. So after taking this class, you can consider taking something like, machine learning and all other type of data analysis courses, or even get in more in depth into application development. So we will take a look at Python, and then looking at how to use sharing declaration with arrays. We will look at different type of compilers, how we can look at modes using the compilers. And as I mentioned before, we will get more into parallel processing and also concurrency, dealing with input and output, looking at futures and event loops. So taking some of the basic concept and expanding it to more of an advanced concept. Um, Looking at blocking codes with frameworks and also with reactive programming. So there's some area in this where we would touch on how this can be integrated with web. And then we will go into parallel processing with graphic processing units. Interesting, there are a lot of image processing with Python. It is used in a lot of different industry, including, biotech, or even, bioinformatics. So we can take a look at how we can utilize images. And when you look at that, you have to think about how data is coming across for a lot of the organizations, like you're looking at labs or hospitals and so on. So in the parallel processing, we'll touch on executor interface, automatic parallelism, and then going into Python threads. Now, in this class, we are mainly going to use Python version 3. There will be some part of the textbook that will touch on the version 2 as a comparison, but we are going to use Python 3 as Python 2 is no longer being supported, but you still see company being used Python 2. And then for the next part, that will be for web requests. So coming back to HTTP requests. So if you took CIS-30E with me, we touch a little bit on that. And then in the web requests, we will touch on concurrency. And for multiprocessing, we are going to look at how we can have things set up to wait, or we can terminate the processes. So something like this where you would witness on the operating system side, but in the applications, how something can be continuous and you can have it terminated, or something can be in queue where it would be waiting. So all of the tasks that's being executed in the application is considered under processes. So we would then be able to have concurrent processes, or something that will be in queue, or something that will be ending. And then we will come back and revisit the image processing, looking at pixels, image files. So this is a really important area also for cybersecurity, in that we deal with a lot of biometrics. I did my dissertation on biometrics, and when I did it, it was in C. However, here you can see that we are going to look at the basics in image processing for RGB, image files, pixel, grayscale, and then the threshold for image processing. So this is going to help you quite a bit, especially if you wanted to get into some other areas of the industry with Python. And then we will get into asynchronous programming and how that would be compared to synchronous. Coming back to, using thread, multiprocessing, going back to module that you've learned in the first class, and then using the coroutines. And so it would tie up everything toward the end here. And so the last part of this is going to get into some security, how your application can work with the operating system, with deadlock and scheduling, or with starvations. And then looking at native extensions, how you can utilize memory a little bit more efficient, with looking at memory management analysis and memory addresses. So we have always used it from the other side, where we're just looking at data containers from the front, but now we have to be mindful of how we utilize our RAM or our memory for our application development. And so the last part for this will be on pattern. We will revisit decorator, and then looking at command, observer, and so on. So this might seem like it's a lot, but some of the things, as you can see, it's repeating throughout. So it will introduce you to the concept, and then we would apply the concept into some of our exercises and some of our projects. I think I'm going to redesign how I offer the project in this particular class. I'm going to pilot something that I've been thinking about, where I would do a project in phases instead of waiting until the end for you to really have the overall product. So we can probably chunk it into 3 portions so it's more digestible and it's easier to achieve. Some students, they struggle with the project at the end as it encapsulates so much, and they might not grasp everything from the beginning. So I'm going to try something a little bit different this semester, and we will see how that's going to work out. And I hope it's going to be better for you. Do you have any question for me as far as the content? Okay. All right. So the objectives, the learning outcomes for this course is to, number 1, plan, design a scalable Python program using scaffolding technique. Second, we want to incorporate packages, library, and extension for Python for data set, for manipulation and asynchronous development. And this is a really big area, and it is a growing area, as you know, that data science is demanding knowledge in Python. And then the third things we want to achieve is to use patterns in Python programming for dynamic and compatible programs. So as you know, that Python can be used to write cross-platform applications. So we will be able to do that in the class. So any questions on student learning outcome? Okay, this is a fairly small class, so if you have any questions, don't be afraid to interrupt or ask. Okay. All right. So the prerequisite for this is just CIS-30E, which is Introduction to Python, advisory that you would have taken CIS-1A and CIS-5, which is C++ basic programming, and along with, you know, Microsoft Office and Intro to Information System. Okay. So for UCI, intermediate programming would be 4 units. So the textbook that we are going to use is going to be from PACT, and this is the newer edition of it. So if you use the prior edition, there's some slight change, but that's okay. Now, if you're not able to purchase the textbook, that's okay. I will release my lecture notes, so you can use that as reference as well. Okay, so the title for this is going to be Advanced Python Programming, Build High Performance Concurrent Multi-Threaded Apps, and the authors are listed here along with the ISBN. So for this course, you're expected to have some outside assignments, readings, quizzes that will be 12 to 14 hours. That's the standard for 3-unit course. For 4-unit course, it's a little bit higher, like 16 to 18 outside hours. We organize everything in modules, like I said. And for this semester, I'm going to have everything due at the end of the week, which is Sunday, like the traditional online course. So it gives you a little bit more flexibility to kind of finish up your assignments instead of making it due a few days after we have lecture and lab. Okay. And now in the case where you can't submit it at the due date, I do take late assignment submission. 1 week late, there will be a 10% deduction. 2 weeks late will be 20% deduction. And I prefer not to take anything after 2 weeks, but I am flexible if you communicate with me in the case of emergency or something had come up. I've had students that notify me that they no longer have a computer. something had happened to their computer, or and so on, or they have family emergency. I will work with the students, just give me heads up, and then I'll be able to, give you time to finish what you need to do, as long as you complete it before the time that we have to close out your grade. But I don't like to take everything at the end, because it will be difficult and unfair to other students. And also, I can deny late work if, under some circumstance, I will deny the late work, but that's rarely the case. We will have some assignments starting today. I will work with you on the assignments. So we will do these together along with some lab work. So every week we will do a lot of hands-on activity. We will work on our technical practices in programming for Python. Your assignment will be due at the due date, or usually on Sunday. You will have a course project, and like I said, I will break it up into multiple parts. So we will start with some of the easier tasks first for the first part of the semester, and then we'll transition. So likely you're going to have 3 parts. There will be time that I will ask you to provide documentation, and you can use GitHub or ePortfolio to be able to maintain your code. And so make sure that you turn in your project on time. I cannot accept your project after the course is ended. So we want to make sure that your grade is ready to go for Web Advisor by the due date. You will have periodic quizzes. I only give final exam, so there's no midterm. The project actually takes place of the midterm. And your quiz will have 3 attempts. Quizzes are due by the end of the week, which is Sunday, 11:59 p.m. And so if you attempt all 3 attempts, the highest score will be recorded. Now for the final exam, I do use Lockdown Browser. I prefer not to use webcam because it generates so many issues for students. But if you use Windows PC or Apple systems or even Chromebook, I know that Lockdown had developed a version for Chromebook. It's in beta right now. So I think it's going to be a little bit more stabilized when we finish. No late exam will be granted because final exam is during the last week of school. Okay, any questions regarding these categories?
Professor,
Yes.
I was wondering, what is, or I mean, will you be telling us exactly what we're gonna do for our projects?
Yeah.
Okay, okay.
So I will section the project into multiple parts. I think instead of having one part that's all technical, what I want to probably do is section your project into 3 parts. So it's like building, like building a house, we'll start laying the foundation. So we'll do one part of the project where it's going to be the bare bone of the application, and then we'll add more components to it as we go along, kind of like our assignments, but a little bit more concrete in that you would have a goal in mind, right? You want to achieve something at the end, so you will build the foundation, and then you would start layering different areas of the concept to the application. Okay.
Thank you.
So you're welcome. So I think about week 6 or 7, that's gonna be the beginning of part 1, and we're gonna spend a few weeks on that. It's gonna be open until the end of the semester, of course, and then have a little bit more than halfway. We'll start with part 2, and then during the 3rd part of the semester, we will start with the part 3, and so by the end of the semester, you should have the complete project. Okay. Yes.
If something does happen to our computer, do we have access to the computer lab on campus?
Yeah, if you clear for class, there are computer labs that are open now. Some are in the humanities. I just put together a computer classroom in SAS 214. It has Windows PC and Apple systems, but I don't know if they're going to make that room available. But yeah, the regular computer lab, the computer classroom that's open for lab, they are available. So you can definitely come on campus if you clear. I have to show my clear pass whenever I come and leave the campus as well. So, and we have to check every day or so for it. So yes, you can do that. They do also have the laptop loan program, but I think there's like a wait list for it. So it takes a little bit of time to get the laptop loaner program. Okay. Yeah, I know some, you're welcome. I know some faculty that are doing lab in there. I don't have lab hours in the computer lab, but I do have lab hours with you on Zoom. I am on campus for other class labs. So in the case that you're cleared and you need help and you want to come on campus to see me to, run your project through or whatever, you can make an appointment with me. I'll be happy to help you. Like today, I was here since 10 a.m. and I'm not going to leave the campus until 9 because my class finished at 9 tonight. So, sometime I'm here all day. And so if you pop in, I can help you too. Okay. Because if you go to the lab, there will be other CIS faculty or faculty in general. They might not know what you need, but you can get the general help, like, files, transfers, stuff like that. Okay. For the grading, this is your scale. This is the standard scale that we use at the community college. 90 to 100 is A, 80 to 89 is a B, 70 to 79 is a C, 60 to 69 is the D, 59 and below is an F. In order to pass the course, you have to have a C or better. I do give extra credit opportunity to help you lift up your grade, but usually that's less than, 7-8%. So, however, if you wanted to take those opportunity and improve your grade, that can definitely help. So your quizzes are 15% of your overall grade. Assignment and participation is 30%. Your lab activities are 20%. Your course project is going to be 15%. Final exam is 20%. And so all of that total to be 100%. There have been cases where students opt out on the course project. There might be some impact to the grade. Some student, they have 100% all the way through and they didn't turn in anything for the course project. So they just take a hit on the overall grade. You can offset that by doing some, all the extra credit that might help with some percentage in that. So that might be like a borderline A if they got 100% on everything else. But if, they don't do any extra credit, it will drop it to a B if they got 100% on everything else. Okay. So just standard student code of conduct. I follow the college conduct standards. And so in the case that if you have complaints or issues, you can file the grievance policy. There's a form that you can submit that goes to the Dean of Instructions. And then, she or whoever that will be the dean at the time will be advising you accordingly. And so for the attendance and participation, attendance is going to be recorded based on your Zoom attendance in this class. And so if you miss 2 consecutive weeks, usually I would reach out to you. But if you don't participate or turn in anything, also that might result in the non-participation or drop. Okay. Now, if you decided to drop the course, make sure that you look at the timeline on WebAdvisor, because if you drop after a certain cutoff, it becomes a W. If you drop it before, it becomes a W, then you might be able to get some refund. So make sure that you observe the drop deadline. Just make sure that you respect each other's feelings, right? If there's any conflict or issues, please bring it to my attention. So any kind of offensive disruption that can result in class dismissal or the program dismissal, and then there's also counseling in the process. That's going to be abiding by the college policy. When you create your project or write your program for your assignments, make sure that you do your own work. It's important. The industry doesn't tolerate this. University definitely doesn't tolerate it. They can dismiss the student permanently. In most cases, they do. So, make sure that we provide reference when it's needed, and then just do your own program. Even if you try, right, it might not be 100% perfect, but I will give you the credit for trying. So the whole point is to learn, and we want to learn together. We want to achieve the project together. We want to get our assignments completed, but don't feel the pressure in that you have to go online and search for somebody else's code and submit that. That's not what I want. Even though you don't have a complete program, but I see that you're trying and you're learning something, that's something tangible for me. So, and if you need help, please reach out to me. Okay. So the consequence of the student getting caught cheating, that will be immediate drop from the course. And then there will be counseling. For plagiarism, I do run the checker. So if the student turn in something that's plagiarized, somebody else's code, if I catch it, and I can tell too by also looking at the assignments and code. There have been cases where team had turned in similar, very close projects, and I addressed that. And for the students that finish already and they turn in the project, I hate for them to get dropped from the course and not receive credit for it. So make sure that your work is your own work. Okay. If you need accommodations like extended test time, or anything that would relate it to accessibility, make sure that you contact DSS. The link is provided here. You can also visit Melody in the library building, room 221, or you can call. If you visit the site, I think they also have Zoom calendar. You can set up an appointment. Now, accessibility is a semester thing. So if you submit something last semester, you got to renew it. And so once you submit a letter or a form, they will send me a notification, and then I will accommodate based on what's being requested. And I'm happy to do that. Okay, so make sure that if you need it, make use of that. For my contact information, if you call this goes to my office phone extension here. If you email me, I would respond. I usually do very promptly, but at the latest within 24 hours. I do on the weekend, late nights, early in the morning, and so on. So I am up at weird hours. So if you have dire questions, you can always contact me via Canvas message or email. And if you need to see me in person, if you're clear to come on campus, this is the time that I'm here. Okay. Now, this morning I was about 10 minutes late here because I have to go get my keys because today is our first day back. But usually I'm here for this time or even later. And then on Tuesday and Thursday, I'm in my office from 5 to 6. And then at 6 o'clock, I have another Zoom online class, which is discrete structure. If you like to attend my Zoom office hours, it's going to be Friday, 4 to 5 p.m. I try to make it where evening student can come, morning student can come or see me, but you can definitely make an appointment to see me. I do have chair hours before this. So I am an assistant chair at Moreno Valley College. That means that I have to interview new faculty. I have to set up schedule and so on. So if you want to make an appointment at a different time, I will be happy to help you. Okay. Any questions with the syllabus? All right. Okay, so that's out of the way. And then you can find all of this information in our Canvas here. There's some stuff that you can check out. I will add more to the Python resources. There's some link for textbook for advanced Python in there. If you need Office 365, you can find the link to download, and the instruction is located on that page. And then the certificate for Python programming, the cybersecurity, and the IT, the approved ones, I updated this list. I posted this last year, and I had changed this to match up with the approval. So you can find different certificates that were approved from Moreno Valley College. This is, you know, so if you take the courses, and if you finish the courses, it will automatically apply you for the certificate. Now, the two programs that are available for apprenticeship are these two, and then this one. So if you are ready for the apprenticeship, RCC has something similar. I work with Skip Berry on that. But if you want to pursue others, right? Also, if you guys are interested in an internship for web programming, I have an opportunity. It is a paid internship with the company in Redlands. One of our former directors, she had gone to a different company, and she had reached out to me. She's looking for a few interns in programming who knows HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and PHP. So if you have that skill, you can shoot me your resume. I can forward it to her, or I can give you more details. It's about 20 hours a week, and they'll work with your school schedule. Okay. All right, let me show you another page. So for apprenticeship, if you're curious, if you want to know what they are, what kind of this, if you are part of the apprenticeship program, you don't have to pay for tuition. That's the nice thing about it, but they have to register you in the apprenticeship program. It's covered by state. There's an incentive for state to improve cybersecurity professionals. So you can take a look at the certificates that are approved for apprenticeship. And then if you want to register, there's an interest form. If you have already filled that out, then they will forward me the information, and there's a checklist. It's a step-by-step on what to do in the apprenticeship. Okay. Now for counseling, you can see CTE counselors. The website is here. The emails are here. They're great. And then if you need help with resume or, you know, preparation for interview outside of the apprenticeship, then you can reach out to career placement coordinator, Nikki Cook. She's very good. She's been telling me to tell you guys that just make sure that you reach out to her if you have any questions. She'll make an appointment to help you. Okay, help you with your resume or cover letter and so on. Your weekly plan is here. I put down the topic that we're going to cover, the type of activities, and this is the plan. So we will make adjustment as we go if we have some delay or if we speed up, right? So you can take a look at what we're going to be learning throughout the weeks. Okay, this class, the content for this class is a little bit on the heavy side. I just want to let you know. So you want to make sure that you dedicate the time for it. Okay. All right. Any questions you can also post here in the Q&A. Okay, so are we ready to do some programming? All right, so let's get our juice flowing. Let's get our Python programming back into our regular routine, right? So in this week, we're just going to review. We'll start with something simple and we'll work our way up to class and object. So this gives you an opportunity to, you know, kind of go over the materials that you've learned in 30A, okay? So what I did was I pulled the notes from 30A and then I sized it down. I know it's a lot of pages on here. We're not gonna use everything on here, but it gives you the overall, just in case that you didn't get all of the content before, right? So we'll start with the notes and we'll work our way up. And while we're looking at that, I also want you to take a look at our assignments. We will do that concurrently. Sorry, I meant to I will post a page for videos. Okay. All right. So here's your assignment. Okay. I'm going to work with you from now until 7 to do these. They're super easy. You can whip them up and follow along. If you need to take a little bit more time, go back and look at the video. Definitely you can do that. Okay. All right. So in our assignment, let me get this up. We will start with the first one. Okay. So for the assignment, we will start with using variable. And the first question, it asks you to write Python script that assigns multiple variables to, sorry, I wrote this when I was sleepy, maybe. Multiple value, that's right, to multiple variables on the same line, and you can provide the screen capture. So now, if you haven't installed Python, make sure that you visit python.org, download the Python 3, okay, and then install it. You can use idle. I'm just going to illustrate everything using Tawny. Okay. So here is my text editor or my IDE. This is where I would write my program, right? So originally we would write something like var1 is, for example, 34, var2 is 7, and so on, right? But Python is very user-friendly, and so we can put everything into one line. In C++, when you declare your variable, you can use a separator like a comma in order to separate one variable with the next. And similarly, we can do that, okay? So I have one that I wrote already, okay? So here is your variable assignment. Let me see if I can make the font a little bigger. Okay, just 1 second. Actually, I'm gonna go with 14. I think that's okay for everyone to see. Okay, so now with Python, you don't have to put the data type in the front like C++, because in C++ we have to say like int x is, right, 9, right, and then you would have a string y is like, you know, home, something like that. But for Python, you can simply use the assignment and it will be able to detect the type. So we can do it all in one line. So here I have a variable x, y, and z. There are 3 variables, and you can do more. So x, right, I would declare it as small. You can use double quotation mark or a single quotation mark there. Okay, so automatically it's going to know that x is going to be a string. And we are declaring x variable here. That's going to be for a string, and we assign it small. Okay, then y, this is going to be a floating point because now we have 1.2, right? So it's going to know that y is going to be associated with 1.2 here as the assignment. And then for z, I wanted to give it a value 1000. So z is going to be 1000. And you can do like 5,000 or 50,000. That's up to you. Okay. Now, for human, we want to be able to display this so we can see that what the output would be, right? What is the value that we assign to x, to y, and to z? So we can simply operate the print. Okay, and I wanted to print them separately so we can see that even though it's on the same line, it's able to do that. Okay, so let me move this down. And then we can say exercise. Unit 1A1, exercise 1. Okay, so once we have that, we're going to go ahead and click run. Sorry, let me pull this up. Okay, so here it tells me that X is small, that's a string. Y is 1.2 and Z is 50,000. So now you can see that you can declare everything on one line. I just wanted to warm you up with a very easy exercise. Okay. And this is for our exercise 1. Any question on this? Now you can use any IDE of your choice. You don't have to use Tawny. You can use Idle. If you like Sublime, you can use Sublime Text to write your program as long as you save it as a .py. Okay, and if you install Python packages, it should be able to run that. If you have a Raspberry Pi, you can definitely run it in Raspberry Pi as well, though the Raspberry Pi is going to be limited to its, RAM and storage, but it should be, the new one should be adequate. So I don't have a preference in what kind of IDE you would use, as long as you can write your script and run it. I'm happy with that. Okay. You don't have to do it this way. You can have integers, you can mix them up however you want it. I just want to show you an example. Okay, any question?
Dr. Wen,
Yes.
is there a way to print all these variables in one line? Or no?
So Cynthia asked if we can do this, right? There you go.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, so simply you can use a built-in method, which is print, and you can use a separator inside for the argument here, because this is a function. It's a Python, that's method, right? So we can definitely bring all of the values together on one line, and you just have to simply separate them by the comma or the separator.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, I originally have it separated here so you can see the difference in each of them, but you can definitely print them all on one line too. Because sometimes for the user, it might be difficult to distinguish, right? So when you print like this, if you want to include like, the comma, then you can put it into the quotation mark and treat it as a string. And then you can say small comma 1.2 comma 50,000. But basically it's just a location, it's a container where it would store these data, and we can pull it from the location from the memory. Okay. Strange with these slides. Okay. Any other questions with this? We can move on to the next one. Okay, very easy, that first one. Okay. So as you learn about variables, there are two categories of the variables. We know that there are different data type for the variable, but we can use a global variable or we can use a local variable. And in CIS-30E, we address that the global variables, or if you took Introduction to Programming, we talked, you probably learned that global variable that can exist outside of the functions. And you want to use global variables if you want to incorporate those variables in across multiple functions or methods. Okay, so you want to declare them at the top, or you can specify that they are global. And then the local variables, it's within the function. So in Python, we would say def, right, for defining the function. And so when you're referencing the notes, okay, I'm going to switch screen to a different document here so I can show you where you can find that. So after all of these variable information here, I have an example of this for the all-in-one line. Okay, so if you were working on the first exercise, you can look at page 1 in your notes. And then the global and the local variables, you can find that on page 2. Here's an example of that, right? We can have a variable that's going to store global, the string. This is at the top. So you have a declaration of the global variable there. And then following that, we have a function. Okay, so here we would define a function and we simply have a local variable. So the local variable is inside, it's within the function. And then the global variable, it exists outside of the function. It can be used across multiple functions. Okay, so you can see an example of that on page 2. So make sure that we know the difference. So for question 2, it asks you, what's the difference between global and local variable? You can say that global variables exist outside of the functions and the local variable exists within the functions. Okay, any question on 2? For 3, I added some of the built-in methods. There are lots, right? You can find many of them. Python is preferred by a lot of developers because there are modules, packages, and also built-in methods for or functions for a lot of things. And so as we know that we have to work with data sets and we have to use operators, and we will likely need to use some of the built-in functions, okay, for numerical values. So I wanted to jog your memory. So here you can find some of the basics, and I pulled this from 30A. So absolute value, you can do ceil for ceiling. This is very similar to what you see in JavaScript and other languages as well. But when you're using ceil, you would need to import math. You need to bring in the math library or the math module. Okay, so if I need to round up the decimal point 3.56 to the next whole number, which is 4, I can import the math module and then I can use ceil to print. Okay, but as you use the module, you got to include that into your print method here. Okay, otherwise it's going to throw an error. You can also round it down. Okay, so that will return the lower value. So you can use floor. Okay, as you can see the example there. So 4.56, we can round that back to 4, which is a whole number, which is an integer. So we go from a floating point to an integer there using floor. And again, we have to import math. You can also use round. Now, round is slightly different in that you can control the decimal points by passing the argument there. Okay, so when we do the round, you can round off to you know, 2 decimal points, 3 decimal points. Why is that of significance? So when you work with financial systems, you know, every cents count, right? Because accumulated, when you're looking at like 50 million accounts, you know, if it's accumulating 1 cent out of every account, that's going to total up to still a lot of money. So what we can do is we can take a look at how we would treat things like prices or even, you know, decimal points for research. So when you're looking at something like COVID virus, you know, or bioinformatics or biotech type of data, sometimes we're looking at a very minute decimal value. So you want to be able to operate it so that way you would retain the significance in the decimal values. Okay, so in this case, the example here, we want to use round and we wanted to make it 2 decimal points. So you would pass the variable there, okay, and then you would use 2. This value right here indicates the decimal points that you want to retain. So that's going to round it up to 2 decimal points. It becomes 1168. And then we can also determine minimum and maximum value, okay, by using max. And these don't need the math module. It's already been incorporated. So there's no math module here. So here is a list. And we wanted to determine the highest value, which is the maximum value. So we can use max, or if we want to use the minimum to determine the lowest value, we would use min. Okay. And then you simply pass the list identifier or the name of the list, right, as an argument there. Okay, question. All right, let's do exercise 3. Okay, so for 3, it asks you to use built-in methods for the following task. A, display the minimum value in the list. I should put the word value there. And here is the given list, 13, 4, 27, and 9. Okay. So here is my example. Okay. So I have my list, which is what's given to me, 13, 4, 27, and 9. So we need to first declare a list, and the list is equivalent to array in C++ or C. And then we want to output the minimum value. Okay, so first we want to determine the minimum value of our list. And then we want to print that. So print goes on the outside. And so the minimum value, it tells us that it is 4, and that's correct. Okay. Now, if we want to do the max, right, you can do max my list like this, and then save and run it again. It'll tell you it's 27. Okay. And that's just the example. So I can comment that out. Any question? So a little sidetrack now, when we do the project this semester, I think I want you to choose what kind of image processing that you want to do. You know, if you can think about, like, do you want to use you know, Python to process images like, you know, fingerprints, or things, it can be for mundane things, which could be very important, like plants, you know, objects. Because now of late, when you're doing like when you're using your phone to scan things, all of that's being processed through image recognition, right? So a way that you can incorporate something like that is to use like a camera if you wanted to incorporate that onto a Raspberry Pi. But you can have data that's already pre-imaged, right? Like pictures. So you can do like a search program that would look through all the images and it's gonna try to find a certain thing on those images. Okay, like an object, like a red ball on a certain pictures, and you can have a group of pictures and it will go through and it will look for it. So you can think about, you know, the big picture on what you want to use, and then we can, you know, go through and build the project. All right, moving on to the next one. So for B, we want to round the next, the number, the given value here to the next whole number, right? So we wanted to go 3.147 and we wanted to round it. Okay, so we can use seal. Okay. So let me see if I can open. Okay, so first I need to go ahead and import the math module. Okay. And then I would then declare my variable. And you can call it anything you want as long as it's readable. Okay. So here I would say my num is 3.147. And then I would do a print math.seal my num. So when I run this, it's going to tell me 4 because it rounded it up to the next whole number from 3.147. Question. Okay, so make sure that we bring in the math module and then declare our variable and then use seal for sealing. Okay, no question. Easy, right? Just a few lines. Okay, next one. Next, we are going to work with exponent to display the result of 36 to the third. Okay, so we're going to cube 36. And you can use the shell to operate mathematical calculation, but we want to write it as a script. Okay, so let's see, exponent is here. One line, we can do print. Now you are going to use pal for exponent. 36 is the base and 3 is the exponent value. When we run this, we would have 46,656. If you put it into the shell, right, it would also give you the output. And you can also find exponent section in the notes. Question. Okay. So gradually you can see that it's going to get a little bit more complex as we move along, but everything we've learned. Okay. For D, we are going to use rand range to display a pseudo-random number that increments every two numbers between 100 to 500. So it's going to step every two numbers. Okay. And we are going to use rand range. And when you use rand range, anytime that you see random, you have to import random. Okay. And that's pretty standard for all C-based language. So, so what we can do is we're going to use this built-in method. We're going to pass the range that we want to generate the random value in. And then we are going to also pass the value for the step through, which is 2. So it's going to chunk it every 2. It's going to pull it's going to create it's going to pull the number. It's going to give you the random. Okay. All right. So now, before I go into the example solution, I want to show you. So your exponent stuff is here on page 3. Okay. And then on page 4, you would have, rand int and also example for rand range. So rand range is on page 4. So for rand range, you want to have a start, which we were given 100. A stop, we were given 500, and then the step through. So if you don't put anything for the step, it's going to default as 1. So your format for that is going to be start, stop, and step. Now for this, you have to import random, of course, because you need to use this module to be able to access that particular method. Okay. So you can refer to the example on page 4 from your notes. So let me get my script here. Okay, so we simply would do import statement with random at the top. You don't have to put this in. I just wanted to follow the example in your notes so you can see that there. So we are going to use rand range. We're going to start at 100, stop at 500, and we're going to step through 2. Okay, so if you omit this, right, like let's say like that, you can simply do a print random dot rand range 100, 500, and 2. So the parameter for this, you need to have a stop, a start, a stop, and a step through. Okay. So we would then run. So it gives me 426. Okay. Now it's 246. Okay, so you can run it, you can see different values being generated. So I saw that in my CIS-30 class, a lot of students were trying to do randomizing, numbers and things like that for different reasons, right? You can definitely use the random module, okay? And then you can use the method that is built for that module, like this, rand range or rand int. You can operate to generate random value. Now, why do I say it's pseudo random? Because it's going to seed at the same. Okay. So question. The way that it would be truly random is that you have to incorporate the time module. Okay. And then you want to increment the time as it seed. Otherwise, you don't have a true random value. This is pseudo random. Okay. It's a lot like that for all the libraries, for most of the random library for C languages. So you can see, you can read about it in the documentation. Okay, so that would be the last one for number 3.
Dr. Wen,
Yes.
I remember we talked about this, but just to make sure I'm on the right track, when they use true random, that's usually an example, a real life example is like resetting a password every 30 minutes, right? Or no?
Yeah, so you can, yeah, you can increment in some time like that for, resetting, like, how people use USB token,
Yeah.
like, yeah, to access systems, you can incorporate something like that for access with USB token,
Oh,
because for the USB token, it resets every 60 seconds. And it generates like a group of values, and then you have 60 seconds to enter those values into the system as you plug that USB token to the desktop or whatever system that you're trying to access. So yeah, there is a time component that would be used in the true random generation of the value. But in this case, like when we look at this, there is no time component that's
right.
built into our program. So yes, you're correct.
Oh, okay. And so for pseudo random, what is some, I forgot, like what are some real examples that we would use in data science or something? I'm not sure.
Yeah, sometimes it just for data purposes, and also like if you use it for game, you see a lot of this in like game, for online game,
Mhm.
um, or pulling, generating like user ID, or generating some kind of values. So for example, like if you have a website where you would have people register for, I don't know, services or whatnot, and you want to just give them a random ID, right?
Okay,
So you will be able to do that. Now, if you want it to be more time sensitive or would be truly random, so it would be harder to guess, then you
great.
have to incorporate the time module. Mhm.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. Any other questions? So this is like a two-liner, right? So easy. Okay. So again, the reference for that is on page 4. Okay, then now we're going to get into conditional and iterative. Okay. And this is so important because everything in our world have some form of condition, right? When it's cold, right? This is going to happen. Even the things that we use, the smart system, right? How it's smart is it's have all of these conditions applied, right? The machine learning compo area is really to train the machine to understand all of the applicable conditions that it might face, right? So let's say that you're using your search engine and you're looking for things. So how does it know that to give you the things that you might be you might be interested in, right? Because they train the model to look for, to give you based on the conditions. So all of that is just incorporating conditional and statement like if else, if elif, right? um, so we would want to really control the flow, or we want to incorporate how certain criteria is met. And nowadays, this is so important, right? To give the user the experience, to really make it look very intuitive. Okay. So here is on page 5, it talks about if statement. And then the following pages is going to go over for and while loop. Okay. So there's if else statement. And then there is if elif. Okay. So Python's a little bit different than what you see in C++ in that instead of nesting the if else into each other, right? They modify it to make it if else. Okay. So if always check for the condition that's true, right? If that doesn't go, then it's going to kick it over to the next level. And if that doesn't go through, it's going to go to the else. Else is where it's false. Okay. You can also nest your if and nest your if else. Traditionally, we can do this, right? Okay, so you can check that out. And then here's the for loop. Now, the main thing about applying these statements in your script is that you got the body for the for loop and the while got to be indented. Otherwise, your IDE is not going to be happy, right? Python, if it's not in the format how it likes it, it's going to complain, right? So if you don't have it indented, it's going to throw an error. That means it's going to complain. It says this is wrong, so you have to go back and debug it. So for the for loop, you would then have the for, and we would use the membership operator in. So you can say for, right? Val, you can use I, J, whatever, right? Identifier that you want. Most of the time, a lot of students are familiar with C++, so they would say for I in, right? And then this is a container. Okay, in sequence, then that will be whatever, print this or increment this. So this for loop is iteration. That means that you want it to repeat something multiple times from, for a number of times. Okay. And this really applied the automation behind it, right? We want the computer to repeatedly doing the same thing over and over again. So we can use the for loop for that, or we can apply the for while loop. Okay. And so when the last item is reached, it's going to exit. So it's going to terminate as it increment or it iterate through to the last. Okay. So popular things with this is running sum, etc. You can also use the range. Now, when you're using the range method with this, just like what we've seen with ran range, you want to have a start, a stop, and a step. Okay. If you don't put the step, the third parameter, it's going to default to 1. So you can definitely apply range also with the for loop. So for Python, there's no do while, there's just while. So here, the while, when it enters the while loop, it's going to check for the condition that's true. If it's true, it's going to execute the body of the loop. If it's false, it's going to exit. So while is often used for something that, you can have an infinitely running while loop. So you can say while something is true, right? A lot of students, they would use this to prompt the user, right? While this condition is true, ask the user to enter username and password. So you can implement the while that way, or you can make it where eventually it's going to have to exit the loop. Okay, so in the case that there's a false condition. So let's take a look at our assignment for number 4. Use conditional and iterative statements in Python scripts giving the following criteria. A, given A is 100, B is 150. Compare the values using the conditional statement and display the lower value. That's easy. You can do an if or an if else. Okay. For B, you're given vals. Vals is a list, 10, 20, 30, 40. We're going to increment each value in a given list by 5. So we're going to add 5 to 10. We're going to add 5 to 20. We're going to add 5 to 30. And we're going to add 5 to 40. Okay. So we simply just add 5 to each of the value on the list. And then C, we are going to use the while statement. We're going to double the value and then we're going to sum them. We're going to start with 5 and we're going to go to 16. You can definitely use a for loop for this one, but you can try using a while loop. Okay. All right. So let's take a look at some example for number 4. So this one's super easy. You have A is 100, B is 150. If A is less than B, which is true, then it's going to print A. Otherwise, else, it's going to print A is not less than B. So here I declare a variable, which is given to me with a value. Also the second variable, which is given to me with the value. I state my condition with the if. So here's my condition. If A is less than B, it's going to display A. So when we run this, it's going to tell me 100. And then you can be fancy. You can say A is the lower value or whatnot. That's fine. Okay. Okay, so that is exercise 4A. Now, if I tweak this and I would say this is, if I change this up to 200 and run it, right, it's going to tell me that, of course, it's not lower. 200 is higher than 150. So this doesn't check true. So it's going to kick it over to the else and it's going to display. Okay, question? We only have a few more to go, so we're halfway there. So for B, we have a list, vals, and we want to increment each of the value with 5. That means that we want to add 5 to each of the value. So let me open for loop. So here I declare my list, vals, 10, 20, 30, 40. And then I would use a for loop to iterate through. So it's going to access each of these, starting with 10, right? And then as it accesses it, it's going to increment each of the index value with, it's going to add 5 to each of them. And it's going to print out as it does it. It goes through the list. Okay. Now, if you want to increment and then put it back into the list, right? Update this list, then you have to append it back into the container. Because at this point, what it's going to do is going to access the index value, add 5 to it, and print it, right? But if you want to make sure that it goes back as an entirety as a container, then you have to use a method to store it back. Okay. So all it is that it would have an address, a memory location where this container is. And then it's going to be able to pull the value from this container by using that address. And as it does it, it's going to add the 5. And it's going to give you that here. And it's going to update it there as it prints. Okay. So here I use a compound assignment operator. I add 5 to each of the value. Easy. Question? Okay, I have about 30 minutes left. So for the next one, the last one in number 4, that's going to be a while statement. We're going to double the value and we're going to sum everything up starting with 5, and it's going to go from 5 to 16. Okay. So we say that X is going to be 5. So we initialize X. And I know we can use a different variable name, but just to follow the question. And then we are going to end it at 16. We are going to find the total or the sum. And when you look at the notes, there's a similar example. So we would have the while X is less than and equal to n, it's going to increment, it's going to sum up the X, and it's going to update the counter. And as it do that, it's going to double the value for the total. Then we're going to print. Okay. So it gives us 49,116. And yes, you can use a for loop for this one, but I want to show you how you can do it with the while. So in this one, it finished at 16 and it's going to exit. Do you have any questions? And yes, I can use mathematical operator there. I just wanted to be a little bit clearer in multiple lines so you can see what processes it's doing. So we can definitely clean this up a little bit and make it shorter. But sometimes, you know, simplified can be harder to read to other people. So I just wanted to make sure that I put all the steps there for you to see. Okay. No question. Okay, so it gets a little more complex now, right? So now we're going to get into nested lists. Okay. We've seen how we can iterate through a list and access the elements values using index. In the last class, you also explore on how you can slice the string, right? You can take apart a string, which is a group of characters or a list of characters. You can also access a certain index to a certain index. So I'm not going to get more into that, but there are notes that's included, and also you can look at 30A materials. So for 5, you're given a new list. This is a 2-dimension list. So it has 1 list and 2 lists that's built into a larger list. So we have 11, 12, 13, 14, and 21, 22, 23, 24. And we want to be able to display each element right in the nested list. Okay. This is a struggle for a lot of beginning students in all my programming classes, C++, Java, Python, and JavaScript. Okay. And for Python, it's pretty easy how the for loop is written. But all you need to do is use the nested for loop when you're working with the nested list. Anything above 2 dimension, you want to use the dictionary. And you can use the dictionary for comprehension, which we're going to do next for number 6. Okay. And so if you need to reference notes, you can go down to, sorry, let me pull past all of this stuff. So on page 14 is where it talks about 2-dimension lists. And there's an example right here. The bottom of 13 going into 14, you will find the 2-dimension list. Okay. So it gave us a nested list, and it asked us to access each of the elements. Okay. So here's my new list, decoration of the list. Okay. It's a nested list here. I have for a for loop. Now in this one, it's a little bit different than the last one in that instead of just using the regular for loop, we're using a for range. So we would say for I in the range, and length is just the number of elements in that list. So it's saying that it's going to go for the entire length of that list. And then we nest another for loop for j in the range of, right, for the list. But in this case, we also need to use the index I. And we want to print, okay, I and j from the new list. And you don't have to put this in here. I'm just following the example so you can see, and then we want to print. So there you go. So it's going to take the first list and it's going to give us that there. And then the second list, and then it's going to put that there. Okay. But if we just need to print the list, right? Python is easy. You can do print and then new list. And it would give you the entire list has how it's declared. That's not what we want. We want to access each of the elements in separate lists. So in this case, you would then use the nested for loop, and we are using nested for range loops. And for range exists in C++, Java, Python, all the C-based languages. Question.
So Dr. Wen,
Hmm?
I had a question. So the length function, it returns every number, or every number or element in the list, or
No, this length right here, this method is just, it's looking at the number of the entire length of that list.
oh,
So in that case, in this case, we have 4 values. So that it's going to treat it as 4. Okay. Now, how it's able to access each of the index is you are iterating through using the for range. So what the statement said here is that it's saying that for I in the range of the 4 elements list. So think of this as 4 element list,
mhm.
right? So it's saying for each of the index in the range of the 4 element list, right? We are going to print I. We're going to access each of the element and show it.
Oh, okay,
Okay.
okay. And
Then
oh, sorry.
the second one, same thing, but in this case, because it's rows and column, right? This is associated with this. So therefore, you need to have the index. So that way it would be finding the actual location of the second list.
Okay. And then
Mhm.
usually our index just means that it starts at 0, right? 'Cause that's
Right, right. The first element starts at 0. That is correct.
okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. Any question with this one? We only got 3 more to go. Okay. Okay. Actually, I'm going to go 2 more, and then the last one, I will leave it up to you. Number 6, we're going to do dictionary comprehension. And like I said, anything that's above 2-dimension lists, we want to use a dictionary. And that's the beautiful thing about Python. It's that, you don't want 3-dimension lists. It's just going to get more complicated. So they had made a way where we can use the dictionary. It's going to be much easier. So we would comprehend a dictionary, and think of dictionary is a way that we would associate data by using keys. If you're familiar with database, concept is very close. Okay. You would have a key, and that key is going to be assigned a value. So for example, my key can be name, right? And I would put the assignment is Casey, and I would have phone, and that will be my phone number. Okay. Age, and that will be the value for my age. So it is a container, and it can have mixed values that will be stored, and each of the value needs to be affiliated with a key. Okay. And the key can be unique. It would be, like I said, name, age, phone, address, and so on. And so when is dictionary helpful? Well, when you need to really store a group of data, right? That might be used for a certain purpose, like a user, or uh, you know, maybe for your research project. Or so there's so many ways that we can use dictionary. And in the last class, or if you have experienced this when you use the dictionary before, you might have practiced with using the basics. So in this one, we're just going to do a very small dictionary that's going to contain your course name, the grade, and the semester that you complete that course. And this can be arbitrary. It doesn't have to be realistic, right? So we would start with my dictionary identifier. So let me put a comment so I don't forget. As I get older, I have information overload, so sometimes I forget like which is which. Okay, exercise 6. Okay, we would have a dictionary name, and you can call it anything you want. So I put my class, and we want to use the curly brace for the dictionary. So my key here is course. And the course is going to be CIS-30E. Or you can make it like intro to programming, calculus, whatever, right? Then I have a grade, and here I choose to use integers so you can see. Okay, 98. So let's say I got a 98%, which gives me an A. And then for the semester, this is the key. The key goes before the colon, and that's how it would understand that this is the key and the value for that key is this. And this is for winter. Okay. And then we can simply print the content of that dictionary. And you can update it, right, by using the method for the dictionary and how you can add it. So it tells me that this is the content of the container. Course. Okay, any question? So this is also a 2-liner. Now, can this be a larger dictionary? So I had a student that turned in a car wash project for CIS-30E. It's an application where people would choose car wash packages, oil change, you know, the deal at the car wash place. And so he created a dictionary for different options, which I think is good because that way, you know, you can, and I would even go further and I would create the module, each module for, you know, like gold, silver, bronze packages at the car wash. And so instead of replacing the whole program when I update, you know, the data, I can simply just change the module, right? I can retire a module. Let's say I don't offer the bronze package anymore. I can just simply retire that module by removing it. And you can also implement, you know, object-oriented programming using class and be able to associate how data can be accessed publicly and privately. And that's what we're going to be doing for the lab on Wednesday, where we will touch on the class a little bit. So, okay, but this is very simple. You can definitely have a larger container that would store more data, but I just want to show you how you can use the basic. Okay. Question. All right. So that's our dictionary, which is number 6. And after the dictionary, we're going to get into sets a little bit. There are frozen sets and there's mutable sets. Frozen sets is not changeable. Mutable sets, you can append more values to the mutable sets. So for 7, we are using 2 sets. The first set is set 1, and that's 100, 101, 102, 103, 104. Set 2 is 103, 104, 105, 107, 108. And as you look at these values, they, you would see automatically, we would say, oh, there's similar values that's overlapping from one set to another. And then there's also difference value, right? So in discrete structure, when we're looking at sets, each set should contain unique value. And that's the same for what we would see in programming languages, okay? So you don't have repetition value. You will not have a set that would have like this. That's a no-no, right? Because the way that they designed the container is that it should only contain unique values. Okay. So when you evaluate data using sets, you have to keep that in mind, right? So if your data have repetition in the value, you have to think about the container that you want to use. So now, why would we care about evaluating sets? Well, there's lots of stuff that we see with data sets, okay? From buying patterns all the way to, the temperature of your house using smart thermostat, to your car, right? Your car has a computer. I'm not talking about a Tesla, just like your regular car, right? So now all the smart devices, the manufacturer, they're able to access the data and kind of see, right, what is going to be, the average miles travel, et cetera, okay? Now, then we would get into data privacy and how they're retaining the data, they're selling the data to advertising company and so on, okay? So here we want to use these sets and we want to combine them for A, both sets into set 3, display the content for the set. So in the case, if you want to put them together, and these are mutable, so you can combine them, okay? Then we are gonna find the difference between set 1 and set 2. We're gonna look at the intersection, which is the overlapping. And what are the overlapping values? You should see 103, right? 104, those are the intersections, okay? The value that we have in common in both sets. All right. And then after that, we're going to look at symmetric difference, the difference in both sets. So when you say, okay, looking at the difference between set 1 and set 2, that's just going to be from set 1 to set 2. So it's going to evaluate, it's going to say, oh, well, it's going to see 100, 101, 102. That's different because set 2 doesn't have those values. But when you look at the symmetric difference, it's going to evaluate these values, okay? It's going to give you those, and it's going to give you these as well in both, okay? That's the symmetric difference. Where the difference in B, it's only going to look at the first set compared to the second set. So here is my exercise. So here is set 1, set 2, and we are going to we're going to combine those two sets. So we can say set 1 union with set 2. That's going to give us the third set, and we're going to print it. Then we are going to look at the intersection, the overlapping value from set 1 to set 2. Then we are going to, did I miss? Sorry, I did. Yeah, I didn't do B. So sorry. This is that. And this is D. And then I'm missing B. And here, I'm going to point out to you where you can find this material in case you need your notes. Okay. I know it's been a while. So after the dictionary stuff, here's the set. Starting with page 14. Okay. And then it's going to go into frozen sets. So you can do set 1 dot difference set 2 like this. Okay, that will give you the result. Okay. So you would see the symmetric difference and the difference in that. Let me finish that line so I can save and print. There you go. So we first have a union, which is set 3. It combines both of the set and print that out for us. So 101, 100 to 108. Now what happens if I have, look at how when it combines 103, we have them in both. It's only going to show it once because it has to have a unique value. And then for 100, 101, and 102, that is your difference from 1 to 2. So it's going to look at these like I highlighted earlier. Okay, and then 104 and 103 is going to be the intersection, the overlapping in both of those sets. And then 100, 101, 102, 105, 107, and 108 is the difference across both sets. Okay. Well, I still have 10 minutes. I'll leave that on for a little bit. If you have any questions, please let me know. I'm not going to do number 8 for you. I want you to attempt it, but the notes also include function definition. It's really easy. Okay. So just to preview that, you have one more to do. You have a box. The dimension of the box is 12 by 16 by 9. You are to write the functions to convert inches to centimeter first, and then calculate the volume. Okay. You can do it in one function, or if you wanted to use 2 functions, that's fine with me. It's probably easy just to do one. So first I would convert these. So put them into variables if you want to be clear, then convert them to centimeters. Once you have the centimeters, then you would multiply them to get the volume in centimeter. Okay. And then output the result. Okay. That's it for our session for today. I will see you again on Wednesday, same channel, same time. We will complete the next part where we would get more into modules, class objects, yeah, some additional materials that we will have for the lab. And then next week we'll get into advanced Python. Okay. Type your name into the chat. And have a wonderful night. I will see you Wednesday. Take care, everyone.
Thank you, Professor.
You're welcome. Have a good night. Work on number 8. Oh,
I had a question. I'm sorry.
sure.
I was wondering, so do I just send you an email about CIS-40E or?
Yeah, just shoot. You can send the Canvas or the email. Just let me know. You can always watch the video. But Cynthia, I noticed that I plan to do some cabling. I know you did some cabling with me when you took CIS-25.
Mhm.
So, you know, this week we might do a little bit of cabling, and then we might do a little bit of topology drawing for CIS-40A. I gotta finesse some things because the material for that class, the chapter is very long. So I
Oh,
want to make sure to address all the objective. But yeah, just shoot me an email, and then yeah, just watch the video if you have to miss it, okay?
okay. It's just, well, I don't know, cause we're gonna host like this Tinker Code workshop. It's just for 6 weeks, but there are other SCs that can do it.
I think you should take turn. I think other people should help you. You should explain to them. I'm fine with you doing it, but I think that you should tell them that they should allow everybody to participate. So,
Yeah.
yeah, because the issue is that if something happens to you, then it's not gonna go. So I would suggest that you communicate with them, and you should be a student first and a worker later. You have to let them know that. Even though I understand it's fun making money.
No. Okay. All right. Thank you, Doctor.
Okay, you're welcome. Take care. Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Good night.
All right, is there any hands-on and anything for tomorrow at 40A?
Yes, but if you don't, I'm almost afraid to. Hold on, let me stop recording.